The unexpected arrival of the cargo hauler Persistent Dream wasn't supposed to be anywhere near uncharted space. Captain Sarah Chun had been running the same route between Earth's colonies for 15 years, hauling everything from agricultural equipment to personal mail. Her crew of 8 had become like family, predictable, reliable, and completely unprepared for what was about to happen. "Captain, we've got some kind of gravitational anomaly ahead," announced Marcus Webb, the ship's navigator. His fingers danced across his console as he tried to make sense of the readings. "It's not matching anything in our database." Sarah floated over to his station in the zero-gravity bridge. The Persistent Dream was an older model that still used rotating sections for artificial gravity in the living quarters, but the bridge remained weightless for better maneuvering capabilities. "How far off course would we need to go to avoid it?" 3 days minimum, Marcus replied. "But that's the thing, Captain. It appeared out of nowhere. These readings, they're showing something that shouldn't exist according to our physics models." Their engineer, Elena Volkov, pulled herself up from the lower deck access hatch. "Whatever it is, it's not affecting our systems. All green across the board." She had grease smudges on her cheek. Having just finished routine maintenance on the fusion drive, Sarah studied the data for a long moment. They were already behind schedule due to a loading delay at their last stop. 3 more days would mean penalties, and their profit margin was thin enough as it was. "Take us in closer, but keep engines ready for immediate burn. Let's see what we're dealing with." As the Persistent Dream approached the anomaly, space itself seemed to ripple. Colors that had no name in human language painted themselves across the void. Then, without warning, the universe folded in on itself. The cargo hauler was pulled through before anyone could even scream. When reality reassembled itself, they were somewhere else entirely. The familiar constellation patterns were gone, replaced by alien stars burning in colors that shouldn't exist. 3 massive vessels hung in space before them, each one dwarfing the Persistent Dream like a whale beside a minnow. "Well," said Chun, Wei, their cook and morale officer, who had floated up to see what the commotion was about, "this is new." The communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in a language that sounded like crystalline bells mixed with grinding stone. After a moment, the ship's translation software kicked in, though it struggled with the syntax. "Unknown vessel, you have transgressed into the sovereign territory of the Zanari Empire. Your primitive craft and biological signatures are not recognized in our databases. Surrender immediately for processing or face annihilation." Sarah exchanged glances with her crew. Marcus shrugged. Elena was already running calculations on her tablet. Chun Wei had somehow produced a cup of coffee from nowhere and was sipping it thoughtfully. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the cargo vessel Persistent Dream," she responded calmly. "We apologize for the intrusion. We encountered some kind of spatial anomaly and ended up here. We're not looking for trouble, just trying to figure out how to get home." There was a long pause. Then the voice returned, seeming almost confused. "You apologize? You do not beg for mercy? You do not deny your transgression or attempt deception? Why would we do that?" Sarah asked genuinely. "We're clearly in your space without permission. Seems like apologizing is the right thing to do. Look, we're just a cargo hauler. We've got a hold full of farming equipment and personal packages. Nothing military, nothing valuable to anyone but the colonists waiting for their deliveries." The massive vessels moved closer, their hulls gleaming with an opalescent sheen that shifted between purple and gold. Scanning beams swept over the Persistent Dream, probing every inch of the small craft. "Your vessel is indeed primitive," the voice announced. "Your weapons are farming implements. Your defensive systems are non-existent. Your crew numbers 8 biological entities. This is not a military deception. Nope, Sarah replied. Just a cargo crew trying to make a living. Speaking of which, is there any chance you folks know how we might get back? We've got deliveries to make, and people are counting on us. On the bridge of the lead Zenari vessel, Commander Thrixavel stared at the communication screen in bewilderment. In his 300 cycles of service to the Empire, he had encountered thousands of species. Some had fought desperately. Others had surrendered immediately. Many had tried to bargain or deceive. But never had he met beings who simply ... talked. They show no fear response, his science officer reported, reading the biological scans. Elevated interest and mild concern, but no panic, no aggression preparation, no submission indicators. Impossible. Thrixavel's scales shifted from purple to orange, indicating his confusion. All lesser species show fear before the might of the Empire. It is the natural order. Perhaps their translation device is malfunctioning? Suggested his tactical officer. They may not understand their situation. Thrixavel considered this. Bring them aboard. We will interrogate them properly. If they are spies, we will know soon enough. The tractor being that enveloped the persistent. Dream was gentle but irresistible. Sarah felt the ship shudder as they were pulled toward a massive docking bay in the lead vessel's belly. Well, team, she announced to her crew, looks like we're about to meet the neighbors. Everyone stay calm, be polite, and remember, we're representatives of humanity out here, whether we meant to be or not. Should we bring something? Shun. Wei asked. Back home, you bring food when you visit someone for the first time. You want to bring a casserole to the alien empire that might execute us? Marcus asked, INCREDULOUSLY. Chun Wei shrugged. Good food is a universal language. I've got some fresh bread that just finished baking. As their ship was drawn into the alien vessel, Sarah couldn't help but notice the impressive architecture. The docking bay was vast, with geometric patterns that seemed to follow mathematical principles she couldn't quite grasp. Other ships were berthed in designated areas, each one unique in design, but all sharing that same opalescent quality. Their metallurgy is incredible, Elena muttered, pressing her face against the viewport. That's not any alloy I recognize. The way it's refracting light suggests a crystalline structure, but it's clearly strong enough for spacecraft construction. The persistent dream settled onto a platform with surprising gentleness. Through the viewports, they could see figures. Approaching tall, serpentine beings with scales that shifted colors like living opals. They moved with a fluid grace that seemed to defy their size, each one standing at least 3 meters tall. Everybody ready? Sarah asked. Her crew nodded, though she noticed Marcus discreetly checking that his emergency beacon was working. Remember, we're just cargo haulers who took a wrong turn. Nothing more, nothing less. The airlock cycled, and they stepped out to meet the Zenari Empire. Commander Thrixavel watched the humans emerge from their vessel. They walked, didn't crawl, didn't charge, didn't cower, just walked out like they were arriving at a space station for shore leave. The lead human, the one who had identified herself as Captain Shun, actually raised her hand in what appeared to be a greeting gesture. *Hello, she said as the translation field activated around them. Thanks for not blowing us up. That was considerate of you. Thrixavel's scales rippled through several colors before settling on a deep amber of perplexity. You are now prisoners of the Zenari Empire. You will be interrogated. Your fate will be determined by the Imperial Court. Okay, Sarah said. Any chance we could call ahead to let our customers know we'll be late with their deliveries? I hate leaving people hanging. The commander's secondary neural cluster fired rapidly, trying to process this response. In the Empire's 5,000 cycles of expansion, they had conquered or absorbed over 100 species. The pattern was always the same. Initial contact, Display of superiority, fear response from the lesser species, followed by either submission or futile resistance. These humans were disrupting every protocol. You ... Wish to inform others of your capture? He asked slowly. Well, not the capture part necessarily, Sarah clarified. Just that we'll be delayed. Mr. Patterson ordered a new hydroponic system for his greenhouse, and he's been waiting 3 months for it. I'd hate for him to think we just forgot about him. Behind the commander, his guards exchanged confused glances, their scales flickering between colors rapidly. One of them, younger, and more curious than the others, spoke up. Do you not comprehend that you face possible termination? It was Elena who answered, looking up from where she'd been examining the deck plating. Oh, we get it. But worrying about it won't change anything, will it? Either you're going to kill us, or you're not. Might as well handle what we can control. In the meantime, she paused. This flooring is fantastic, by the way. Is it self-cleaning? The molecular structure suggests it might be. Commander Thrixivol found himself answering before he realized it. Yes, it breaks down biological contaminants at the molecular level. Then he straightened, his scales flashing red. Enough. You will come with us for processing. As they were, escorted through the ship's corridors, the humans kept commenting on things. Chun Wei asked about the lighting systems. Marcus was fascinated by the gravity generation. Sarah kept a steady stream of observations about crew efficiency and ship organization. It was driving the Zenari to distraction they were brought to. A room that was clearly meant for interrogation. The walls were dark, the lighting harsh, and various implements that looked decidedly unpleasant were displayed on the walls. Sarah's crew was separated. Each taken to a different room. Sarah found herself facing Commander Thrixivol across a table that seemed to be made of solid shadow. Now, he said, his voice taking on harmonics that the translator struggled with, you will tell us everything. Your world's location, your defenses, your technology, your weaknesses. Sarah leaned back in her chair, which was surprisingly comfortable despite its intimidating appearance. Earth is in the Orion arm of the Milky Way galaxy. Actually, wait, you call it the Milky Way? That's just what we call it. It's about 26,000 light years from the galactic center. Want me to write down the coordinates? Thrixivol's scales went completely white, a color his species only achieved in moments of absolute shock. You ... You simply tell us? No resistance? No deception? Why would I lie? Sarah asked. You've got scanning technology that makes ours. Look like stone tools. You'd figure it out eventually anyway. Plus, lying just makes things complicated, and I prefer to keep things simple. Your defenses? He asked, almost automatically. Well, Earth's got the standard colonial defense fleet. Maybe 300 ships, though half of those are probably in maintenance at any given time. You know how it is with government contractors, lowest bidder, and all that. We've got some orbital platforms around the major colonies, but honestly, they're mostly for asteroid deflection. We haven't had a real war in about 50 years, unless you count that dust-up with Mars over water rights. But that was more lawyers than lasers. Commander Thrixivol stood up abruptly, his tail lashing in agitation. This makes no sense. You should be terrified. You should be bargaining for your life, offering us anything to spare your world. Why do you show no fear? Sarah thought about it for a moment. I guess we're just wired differently. Don't get me wrong. I'm not thrilled about the situation. But fear? Fear is what you feel when you might lose something. We're cargo haulers, Commander. We've already accepted that space might kill us any day. Reactor failure, hull breach, navigation. Error. You're just another possible danger in a universe full of them. Besides, you seem like reasonable people. You haven't hurt us. You're talking instead of shooting. That suggests you're civilized. Civilized people can usually work things out. Asterisk the ripple effect. The news of humanity's first contact with the Zenari Empire spread through the galactic communication networks like wildfire, though not in the way anyone might have expected. The official report from Commander Thrixevil had to be read 3 times by the Imperial Council before they believed it. Wasn't a translation error dot in the Great Council Chamber on the Empire's capital world of Zenaris. High Chancellor Crex Theta. Scales had turned a deep violet of contemplation as she reviewed the interrogation recordings for the 5th time. Around her, the 12 members of the Imperial Council sat in stunned silence. They simply told him everything? Council member Jorix asked, his voice carrying disbelief. No coercion required? Worse, replied Council member Velara, whose scales flickered with troubled yellows and greens. They offered suggestions for improving our interrogation room's comfort. The one called Chun Wei apparently provided a recipe for something called chocolate chip cookies to the guard staff. High Chancellor Crex Theta manipulated the holographic display, bringing up the biological scans of the humans. Their neural patterns show no deception, no significant stress responses. They are genuinely unconcerned with their fate. Perhaps they are simple-minded, suggested Council Member Torvik. A species without the intelligence to comprehend danger. That theory is disproven by their engineer, the Chancellor responded, pulling up another file. The human Elena Volkov has already identified 3 inefficiencies in our power distribution, network just from casual observation. She offered to fix them, asking only for something interesting to read in return. Meanwhile, aboard the Zenari vessel, the human crew had been moved from interrogation to what could generously be called guest quarters. The rooms were still secured, but comfortable. Sarah was reviewing stellar charts with surprising enthusiasm when Commander Thrixevil entered. Captain Shun, he began, his scales a neutral gray. I have been instructed to learn more about your species. Your behavior defies all our models of lesser species interaction. Sarah looked up from the charts. Lesser species? That's a bit presumptuous, don't you think? I mean, you've got better technology, sure, but that doesn't necessarily make you superior. My grandmother couldn't operate a quantum computer, but she could grow tomatoes that would make you weep with joy. Different strengths, that's all. Thrixevil settled into what passed for a chair among his people, his long serpentine body coiling beneath him. Every species we have encountered has acknowledged the natural hierarchy. The strong dominate the weak. It is the fundamental law of the universe. Is it, though? Sarah asked, genuinely curious. Seems to me the universe runs on cooperation as much as competition. Stars form from clouds of gas, working together through gravity. Life itself probably started when different molecules figured out how to work together. Even your empire, isn't it really just a large-scale cooperation project? The commander's scales shifted through several colors as he processed this. The empire exists because the strong species have imposed order on the chaos. Or, Sarah suggested gently, different species found a way to work together and called it an empire to feel better about it. I bet if we looked at your history, we'd find more negotiation than conquest, more trade agreements than battle records. Before Thrixevil could respond, an alert echoed through the ship. His communication device activated, showing a harried-looking subordinate. Commander, we have a situation with the human engineer. She has somehow accessed our maintenance systems and is improving them. They found Elena in one of the maintenance bays, surrounded by puzzled Zenari technicians. She had partially disassembled a power coupling and was explaining something with animated gestures. See, you're losing about 12% efficiency here because of the resonance pattern, she was saying. If you adjust the frequency modulation, like this, she made a small adjustment, and the power readings immediately improved. How did you access our systems? Thrixevil demanded, They are secured with quantum encryption. Elena looked sheepish. I asked nicely. Your technician, Zixavel here, was complaining about the coupling making a weird noise. I offered to take a look. One thing led to another. ... She shrugged. I can't help it. I see a problem. I want to fix it. In another part of the ship, John, Wei had somehow turned the detention center's food preparation area into an impromptu cultural exchange. 3 Zenari guards sat in various states of confusion and delight as they attempted to eat something called pizza with their tri-forked tongues. The key is the dough fermentation. Shen Wei was explaining. You need to let those microorganisms do their work. It's a partnership between human and yeast, really. We provide the environment, they provide the flavor. Guard Captain Yurikson, who had initially protested this breach of protocol, found himself asking, And your people have been preparing food this way for how long? Oh, thousands of years in one form or another, Shen Wei replied cheerfully. We figured out pretty early that working with other organisms made life better. Farming, fermentation, domestication. It's all about finding ways to cooperate instead of just taking what we need. The ripple effects of these interactions spread throughout the ship. Marcus had started a discussion group with the navigation team about alternate dimensional theory. 3 of the junior officers were teaching him a Zenari board game in exchange for lessons in something humans called poker. Even the ship's doctor, a stern Zenari named Dr. Kethel, found herself engaged in fascinating exchanges with the human medic, David Kim, about comparative biology. Your species heals remarkably fast, she noted, reviewing his scans. But your tolerance for toxins is even more impressive. Half of what you consume would kill most known species. David laughed. We call it evolution through stupidity. Our ancestors kept trying to eat things they shouldn't. The ones who survived had kids. Natural selection at its finest. Back in the council chamber on Xenaris, an emergency session had been called. The implications of humanity's existence were causing unprecedented debate. Asterisk. If they truly have no fear of death, Council Member Jorix was saying, then our entire power structure is meaningless against them. The Empire maintains control through the threat of force. A species that doesn't respond to threats cannot be controlled, finished Council Member Velara. Worse, their attitude appears to be contagious. Commander Thrixaval's latest report indicates his crew is beginning to question fundamental assumptions about Imperial doctrine. High Chancellor Krex Theta raised a claw for silence. The humans have requested a formal meeting. They wish to discuss what they call mutual opportunities. They're negotiating, but they're in no position to. That's just it, the Chancellor interrupted. They don't seem to recognize positions of power as relevant. Their Captain Shun sent a message saying, and I quote, "We've got some ideas that might help both our peoples. Want to chat over dinner?" Chun Wei makes an excellent pasta. The absurdity of it all might have been funny if it wasn't so destabilizing. The Zenari Empire had spent millennia perfecting the art of dominance through superior force and intimidation. Now they faced a species that treated first contact like a neighborhood barbecue. 3 days later, the Imperial Council found themselves in the unprecedented position of sitting at a dinner table with cargo haulers. The formal dining hall had been reconfigured at the human suggestion into something more intimate. Chun Wei had somehow coordinated with the palace kitchen staff to prepare what he called a fusion menu. The thing is, Sarah was saying as she passed a dish to High Chancellor Krex Theta. Your empire has all this amazing technology and resources, but you're spending most of it on maintaining control. That's got to be exhausting. It is the burden of superiority, the Chancellor replied, though her tone suggested she was beginning to question this herself. Or, Elena suggested, helping herself to something that looked like Zenari seaweed prepared. In an Earth style, You could try something different. Share the technology, open up trade, let species contribute what they're good at instead of forcing them into predetermined roles. Council member Torvak's scales flashed red. That would lead to chaos. Without central control, you'd have innovation. Marcus interrupted gently. Look, I've been talking to your navigation teams. They're brilliant, but they're all thinking the same way because they're all trained the same way. Imagine if you had 100 different species approaching the same problems from different angles. It's like cooking, Chun Wei added. Every culture on Earth developed different cuisines based on their local ingredients and traditions. When we started sharing recipes, combining techniques, that's when things got really interesting. Korean tacos, Italian ramen, Indian pizza. Diffusion created something better than any one tradition alone. The High Chancellor found herself considering possibilities she had never imagined. You're suggesting the Empire become what exactly? Sarah leaned forward, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. A community. Look, you've got the infrastructure already. Instead of using it to control, use it to connect. Trade networks, knowledge exchanges, collaborative research projects. You could keep your leadership role, but as facilitators rather than dominators. The lesser species would never agree to. Council member Jorix began. Stop calling them lesser, David Kim said quietly but firmly. That's your first problem right there. The moment you assume superiority, you close yourself off to what others can teach you. Elena's improvements to your power systems? That came from lesser human engineering. Chun Wei's recipes that your staff can't get enough of? Lesser human culture. The room fell silent for a moment. Then High Chancellor Krextheta did something that hadn't been done in the Imperial Council in over 1,000 cycles. She laughed. It was a strange sound like harmonized crystals, but unmistakably laughter. We have conquered 100 species, she said finally, and in 3 days you have conquered us with pasta and conversation. Not conquered, Sarah corrected with a smile. Befriended, there's a difference. The implications hung in the air like a tangible thing. The Zenari Empire, built on 5 millennia of dominance and control, was facing a challenge far greater than any military force and idea. The idea that strength could come from cooperation, that diversity was an asset rather than a threat, that respect was more powerful than fear. Council member Villara, who had been quiet throughout dinner, finally spoke. If we were to consider this approach, how would we even begin? The entire structure of the Empire would need to be reimagined. Start small, Elena suggested. Pick one system, one species that's been under Empire control. Offer them partnership instead of subjugation. See what happens. And if it fails? Council member Torvik asked. Then you learn from it and try something else, Marcus replied. That's how progress works. Not through rigid control, but through experimentation and adaptation. Commander Thrixivil, who had remained silent throughout the meal, suddenly spoke up. The Quillari system. They've been requesting autonomy for 300 cycles. They're creative beings, artists and philosophers. Under Imperial control, they've stagnated. Perhaps, ... Perhaps they could flourish as partners, the High Chancellor finished. Her scales had shifted to a color none of the humans had seen before, a deep, iridescent blue that seemed to indicate profound thought. As the dinner concluded and the humans were escorted back to their quarters, High Chancellor Krextheta called Commander Thrixivil aside. Your honest assessment, Commander. Are these humans a threat to the Empire? Thrixivil considered carefully. Yes, Chancellor, but not in the way we understand threats. They challenge our fundamental assumptions about how civilization should work. They offer no violence, make no demands, yet their ideas could unravel everything we've built. Or transform it into something better, the Chancellor mused. Prepare your ship, Commander. you'll be taking the humans home. Home, Chancellor? Yes. And you'll be taking an Imperial delegation with you. If we're going to consider this path, we should see how these remarkable beings live when they're not accidentally stumbling into our space. 3 weeks later, the persistent dream emerged from Zenari-controlled space, escorted by a full Imperial diplomatic fleet. Earth's traffic control nearly had a collective heart attack when suddenly their screens showed massive alien vessels appearing just beyond Mars' orbit. Sarah's voice crackled over the communication channels, carrying the same casual tone she'd maintained throughout their adventure. Earth Control, this is Persistent Dream. Sorry, we're late with the deliveries. We took a bit of a detour and made some new friends. You might want to alert the UN we're going to need a bigger landing pad. The transformation of the Zenari Empire didn't happen overnight. There were setbacks, conflicts, and moments when the old ways seemed easier. But the seed had been planted. The idea that strength could come from unity rather than dominance, that diversity was a resource rather than a threat, spread slowly but steadily through the galaxy. Years later, when historians tried to pinpoint the moment when the galactic community was truly born, they would point to a cargo hauler taking a wrong turn, and a crew of humans who treated first contact like meeting new neighbors. Because sometimes the most profound changes come not from force or fear, but from someone offering to share a meal and asking, "Want to be friends?" Chun Wei's chocolate. Chip cookies would eventually become the unofficial symbol of the new galactic order. But that, as Sarah would say, is another story entirely. Asterisk.